So they took maybe 20 bucks and an old watch? Mr. Madsen, did you even take a swing?
No.
Could have taken her, Dad.
This is Nick Spacek for Starburst Magazine. Nice to talk to you, Ilya.
Hey, nice to meet you, Nick.
I guess my first question is, what led you to want to work with Derek Kolstad?
The way it happened was that I got the script with Bob. It was Bob's original baby, so he hired Derek to write the script for him, and then they came to me as a package ready with Bob as the lead, and it just made total sense. I was reading the script, I was like, "Yep, I understand why Bob wants to do it. I understand how this can be made into a great movie. I understand first and foremost as an audience member, not as a director, that I really want to see this if done correctly." So then I had to switch over to the director side and be like, "All right, now it's time to do this correctly," so the other side enjoys it. But yeah.
Well, you did it correctly. Like, watching any of your films, the thing that I appreciate most is that like the violence looks like it hurts. Like it's not like fun violence. Like every punch looks like you can feel it. Like, where did that approach come from?
I was bullied a lot. No, I'm kidding. I wasn't. Just a little bit. You know, it's funny that you see it this way because I always felt that while the violence was hard, it's never mean. There's an undercurrent of kind of a certain lightness to it because there's certain movies that we all love, action films that I feel are incredibly violent, and not just violent, but they're mean violence. And even with hardcore, which had, you know, people's heads blown up and all that stuff, it never felt to me, at least, maybe I'm just weird in the head, but it never felt to me like it's mean and is trying to hurt the audience and make it less than pleasurable to watch. With this story, with Hutch Mansell's story for Nobody, it was important to make sure that it is a real character. He's in a real city, and he doesn't have superhero powers. When he gets hurt, when he gets punched, he feels it. He doesn't just bounce right back. And because the point of the film is not really about all the action scenes, which are obviously there because we like action, we want to see action, but it really is about the inner conflict that the character is going through. And because that's thematically, the film to me is about addiction. The guy's addicted to violence and he's kept it bottled for 20 years and now he's coming back to it and he gets his mojo back and becomes a happier person for it. The violence had to feel real. If you know, it's kind of like you're showing imagine if leaving Las Vegas, you never saw Nick Cage drinking water. I mean, it could work, but it'd be a strange film. So, you know, the violence had to be violent, respectful to its theme.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the fact that like you want him to be like, you want it to be like a real world thing, because like that opening montage really sets the initial tone, but also offers something like against which you can play off of. Like, how important was it to you to get that like opening the montage that opens the film, to get that right?
Well, there's nothing in the edit that we felt it's okay not to get right. Because kind of the time you pour over every single cut, you know, dozens of times and wonder if this is the right choices and can we do better. And as time permits, you always try to do better. There were a lot of different cuts, not a lot, but there was some. And I think to me the key thing was getting the intro, getting the right song, getting the right attitude from Bob. And, you know, as he you know says these first lines. And just the feeling of that cigarette. I think, you know, one of the big discussions was, can we have a hero who smokes? And I'm, as a smoker, I hate cigarettes. I hate the propaganda aspect of it. I absolutely hate it with all my heart. But with this one, I said, guys, we need to have him to smoke. That's how you sell this character. The very first, to see Bob in this way, beaten up, bruised, not giving a shit, lighting that cigarette and, you know, touching that and feeding that kitty cat. That's what this film is. So I absolutely forgot what you asked me. I'm so sorry. I went on a tangent. I'm sorry.
No. It totally explains it. Like that opening like scene and that opening like montage that like introduces Hutch at, you know, before, you know, he's bloodied and bowed. Like it works so well. And I think you spoke to the fact that like Bob Odenkirk is like the real like gem of this picture, because like he and Christopher Lloyd are both like very talented comedic actors, and that keeps no matter how bleak it can and violent it can get, it keeps it from getting dark. It keeps it, I laughed out loud in numerous scenes. Like, when did Christopher Lloyd come into the picture?
Fairly early on. I think it was, give credit where it's due. I think Bob called us. We were prepping in Winnipeg, and Bob called us and said, "What about Chris Lloyd?" And we're like, "Well, of course, he's perfect. Why we're kind of pissed at ourselves for not figuring it out earlier." But it just made total sense. As soon as he said that name, it just clicked. It just clicked, and I thought, this is real, because we wanted someone who's, age appropriate, and Lloyd absolutely is, and we wanted someone who has a real inherent sweetness to him, which he does. And once we assembled the trio of Lloyd, Bob, and Riza, it just made total sense. As ridiculous as that sounds, it made total sense. And you're right when you're saying that, and I'm glad you laughed out loud during the pictures, that the film, got to stop saying picture. But I just love the bigness of it. But the thing if you're telling a darkish story, not that this one's super dark, but there's some bleak elements. It's fantastic to have at its core to have people who can be very light and are known for being just positive characters. It just is the contrast and balance between the darkness and the light, and it's we were really lucky to have the stars that we did in this.
Like, in further contrast between dark and light, there's your musical choices, both in Nobody, but Hardcore Henry as well. Like, you use these songs that I never would think to see or hear, I guess, in action films. Like, opening Nobody with Nina Simone's version of Please Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, that version of Jerry and the Pacemakers, You'll Never Walk Alone. It seems like you go for like these like very like golden oldies to like further the contrast even more. Is that like, what is it with that particular musical style that you enjoy using in your films so much?
Well, I always loved great soundtracks and films. I love when there's just a great score, when there's a really interesting soundtrack. And look, when I was growing up, my favorite director was Quentin Tarantino, still is in the top, and just the way that he used music. And I think actually before even Quentin, Hitchcock said it best. He said, if you shoot your love scenes like they're murder scenes, and your murder scenes like they're love scenes. And that, I think that is the biggest directorial arrow that pointed me in the right direction, is that you want to have, violent things happen to sweet music. And Scorsese does an amazing job of it all the time. Quentin does an amazing job of it all the time. There's something very special and heartwarming about it. I know it just clicks for me, and I hope people feel the same way as you and I do towards it. It just makes it more special. And it's also, I'm sorry, it's just going away from the obvious. You can do like all the action stuff and set it to death metal, and it'll be like, well, it's appropriate because it's violent music and it's violent action. But isn't it great, to have it be contrasting and unexpected a little bit?
Oh no, like, I mean, I love contrasts between like light and dark and things like that. It makes the film work so much more. But like, you have like a full on like musical number that you cut back and forth between, which I don't think is spoiling anything for anybody in the movie. But like, was it fun to actually have like a it's a little lip syncy, but was it fun for you to actually have like an actual musical number in one of your films?
I did the same thing, similar thing in Hardcore with there was another Sinatra song that Shelter's character sang, but I think the reason it's lip sync is because we changed the song. The original song in that sequence was supposed to be "Wonderful Life," which was, I think it worked, but it was a little too melancholic for the sequence, and we had to change it. That's why the lip sync element is there, which pisses me off, but we can't do much about it. But when I shoot music videos, I never shoot musicians singing or playing guitars. I don't care. I just don't give a shit. It's just absolutely not interesting to see the stars do their thing. I've seen them 100 times and it's always the same. I always try to tell a story, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but usually it does. So what we're shooting, if you look at the sequences when Julian's first dancing and then the other sequence you were just mentioning, they're shot in a completely plain way. It's just a wide camera allowing the character to do what he's doing without all that, fast, let's dolly around to make it more exciting and dynamic. I hate that sort of fake speed and fake emotions, because that's what they are. A camera is a character, and you can't just, I really dislike it when the movies just, start flinging around for no reason. If a camera, in this movie, Pavel and I, the DP, we knew that every time the camera moves, there got to be a reason for it. It's not just going to be, just for the sake of adding pacing or fake pacing. Pacing, yeah, that's what I'll call it. But the whole thing was fun, and it's fun when you're coming back to your question. I'm sorry, but it's fun to be able to have an action film when a villain gets to do a silly dance. And fun little Easter egg is that the song that he dances to in the beginning it was a huge Russian hit song in 1991 or 1990. But it's called The Auditor, and he's basically singing about the guy he's gonna be facing off with soon enough. So it's, the Russians will get it. That's a little bit for my country folks.
That's a really, really great Easter egg. Like I love it. Like when things are put in movies like that, where it's like, if you know the language, you're gonna get it. It's like the beginning of The Thing. Like if you speak Norwegian, you know the whole plot of the movie once it starts.
It got, I mean, if I was Norwegian, I'd be pissed if I saw that. But my favorite example is Saving Private Ryan, when they get the Germans at after the Omaha sequence, the two Germans who are, we think they're saying don't shoot us, but they're actually saying they're not Germans, and they shoot them anyway. So it's amazing that it is a language. I mean, it is a tool we can use, and we should use if we have the opportunity. So if you're making a movie that's got Russians and Americans, it'd be great to just utilize a little bit of that. Why not?
So this is sort of like not applicable to anything we've been talking about, but it's something I've always wanted to ask. Like, there's a really great chase scene in this movie. Did you pick the car that you were going to use, like, because it's a car you enjoy, or was it just like one that was available? Because it just seems perfect.
I think the script had a Maserati, but the script also took place in LA. And when I was reading the script, I was like, we're not going to be shooting this in LA. That just won't happen. We don't do the movies like that there anymore. But when we started looking at possible picture cars, I think I'm not a huge car enthusiast. I know some, and I used to dream of an American muscle. My first car was a 1973 Impala, so I have a little bit of understanding about American cars at that time. But the Challenger made sense for Bob's character. It just, when we started looking at all the different options, it kind of just, this is the one. And I think the choice, making sure it's white so it's stood out at nighttime, and just have a bit of a, because he sees himself as a righteous guy, even though he's not. But that's what he sees himself. So he's got to have a white car, because obviously, he's the good guy in his mind. But yeah, it was not a mistake.
Well, and I mean, it's got to be an old muscle car, because you have to have a tape deck in it, because you got to have that click.
Yeah, guilty. That's right. The tape was important. The tape was important. I mean, the CD could work, but not as good as the tape. There's something, because the character is very analog. I mean, we only see him use a cell phone once, and that's because we really need it for that one sequence. But ultimately, Bob, he doesn't have his own cell phone. There are rotary phones in the film. I think, there was a sequence Michael Irons said that we cut that a rotary phone, but we wanted to keep it as timeless as possible. Like, it doesn't tell you which city in the States it takes place in. It doesn't say anything. In fact, I think we went so far as all the number plates, they're all from different regions. Just because they were like, Ilya, we got to make a choice. Are they from this? Or are they from that? I'm like, no, it's any town in America. It doesn't matter. For the rest of the world, we just don't think of it from an American perspective. Look at it from the world perspective. This is a movie made for the entire world to potentially enjoy. So let's not give anything away. Let's make it any town USA. And there were quite a bit of, even if you look at all the shots, all the drone shots of a city, I made sure that every single drone shot is from a different city. And it works together, because you pick the right drone shots. But yeah.
We'll just call it Springfield.
Springfield, of course. How many Springfields in America? Like 20?
There is one in every state, which is why The Simpsons used it.
One of it. But didn't they also at certain point say which state it's in? I think they some reason, I think there was a moment when they came up which is the one. What state they're
Yes.
supposed to.
Oh, I should
I'll
know
look at.
this. Right. So now that the film is done and it's coming out, like I know like everybody is always very excited about the new thing they have, but it's always like the thing they're most excited about is what's coming next. So like what other things do you have on your plate at the moment?
There's a couple of irons in the fire. We have a very, very good script that we're very happy with, the current draft, called, based off a New York Times bestseller, Leaving Berlin by Joseph Cannon. It's a 1949 set airlift era Berlin spy thriller, romantic spy thriller, which is something that I want to do for a while. I want to try and make sure that, I did the ridiculous teenager action film, then I did the more grounded adult action film, and now I want to do something that is trying to focus on the romantic stuff side of things while all the crazy stuff is happening around us. So that's one thing that might happen. We're going to be going out with it soon to stars and seeing what happens. And there's what is, I think, my favorite script called The Adventures of Benito Valenzuela, which is contemporary Western I wrote it with an incredible writer. And if that one works, if I get a chance to do that one, I think that will be something incredibly special. So time will tell,
Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to like anything you do, but given like now that like how long, like were you affected at all by COVID in the production of this film? Like, I feel like that's a question that I'm like, I think legally obligated to ask at this point in the pandemic.
Well, we finished shooting in December, early December, and then we were editing, and we were about to have a first test screening on March 19th. And I think several days before that, Tom Hanks and NBA shut down, and everyone's like, "Oh, we're going to take it seriously now in the States." So we shut down our offices in Vancouver. I went back home. Went to hard lockdown. Moscow was proper, like serious lockdown. And 2 months later, I was back in LA. We were working Universal Studios doing the sound and the final cutting, and it was a ghost town. It really was. I think there was like 10 people on the lot, which is, it's a huge, lively lot with a lot of things happening. And then we were just literally just me and 7 sound mixers hanging out and doing the mix, which was very apocalyptic in its feeling. But it's in terms, like, I realized it's fantastic if there is, the ability to be able to work, considering how many people had a really hard time last year and continuing to have a hard time with all the effects of the goddamn corona. I cannot complain. And I think, the fact that we were able to finish this movie while people are having real struggles, I think we've been very lucky.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to finish it, and I'm glad that it's coming out, and I'm glad that other people are going to get to see this, because then that means I will get to talk to them about it, because it's very hard keeping my mouth shut right now.
Thank you, Nick. I'm very happy you liked the film. Because you think you did a good movie, you're happy with it, but then it actually goes out and you're getting real feedback from real people who didn't know what to expect. So it means a lot that you enjoyed it. It really does.
Well, you're very welcome. I think my wife was a little, who was working upstairs while I was watching it, was a little less enthused, but at my yelling. But yeah, again, thank you, Ilya, so much. This has been a real pleasure, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk to me.
It was all mine. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome.
They came after my family.
They stole my kitty cat bracelet.
And you don't fucking do that! Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet!
You look like shit, Dad.
You should see the other guys.
Who the fuck are you?
Me? I'm nobody.
Nobody! Nobody! It's nobody!